The sun beat down mercilessly on the Gobi Desert as Dr. Park Ji-eun wiped sweat from her brow. Her team had been digging at this site for weeks with little to show for it. Most of her colleagues had already written off this expedition as another wild goose chase, but Ji-eun trusted her instincts. "Dr. Park, come quickly," Kim Tae-ho's voice echoed across the excavation site. The young assistant was waving frantically from a newly opened trench. Ji-eun hurried over, her heart racing. When she reached the edge and looked down, she froze. There, partially exposed in the sand, was a stone tablet covered in markings unlike anything she'd ever seen. "What do you think it is?" Tae-ho asked, his eyes wide with excitement. "I'm not sure," Ji-eun murmured, carefully climbing down into the trench. She brushed away sand with her small brush, revealing more of the intricate patterns. "These aren't like any ancient script I've studied. The precision is unusual." Back at their makeshift lab tent, Ji-eun photographed the tablet from every angle. The markings seemed to shimmer slightly under certain light, almost as if they were moving. "The university will want to run tests before we make any claims," she told her team that evening over dinner. "You know how Professor Lee tore apart my last paper?" Tae-ho nodded, still studying photos of the tablet on his tablet. "They always want evidence that fits their theories. But what if this doesn't fit any theory?" Over the next few days, 3 more tablets were discovered. Each one contained similar markings but arranged in different patterns. Ji-eun sent the initial findings to her department, only to receive a dismissive response suggesting the markings were likely just unusual. Erosion patterns. Erosion patterns? Ji-eun fumed, tossing her phone onto her cot. They didn't even look at the electron microscopy results. Tae-ho had been quiet all morning, studying the photos with unusual intensity. "Dr. Park," he said slowly, "have you noticed how these patterns here match the star cluster we can see from this location?" Ji-eun leaned over his shoulder, squinting at the screen. "I hadn't made that connection," she admitted, excitement building in her voice. That night, they stayed up late mapping the patterns against star charts. The correlation wasn't perfect, but it was too consistent to be coincidence. 2 weeks later, with funding running out and most of the team packed to leave, disaster struck. Ji-eun had been working late, making rubbings of the tablets to take back to the university. Half asleep, she knocked over her coffee cup, spilling the dark liquid across her papers. "No, no, no," she cried, quickly lifting the soggy papers. But as she moved to blot them dry, she noticed something strange. Where the coffee had soaked the rubbing of the third tablet, faint blue lines were appearing, revealing an entirely new layer of markings. "Tae-ho," she shouted, not caring that it was 2 a.m. "Get in here." They spent the rest of the night testing different liquids on sample rubbings. Something in the stone reacted with the acid in the coffee, revealing hidden patterns that connected all 4 tablets in a complex 3-dimensional grid. "This isn't natural," Tae-ho whispered as dawn broke. "These patterns aren't random. They're not even ancient human. They're too precise," Ji-eun finished. "Too deliberate." News of their discovery spread rapidly. Within days, similar tablets were found at archaeological sites in Peru, Egypt, and underwater off the coast of Japan. Each one revealed hidden patterns when exposed to mild acids. The scientific world was divided. Some dismissed the findings as elaborate hoaxes. Others proposed theories ranging from forgotten ancient human civilizations to natural formations with unusual properties. Ji-eun found herself thrust into the spotlight, defending her work on international news programs. "Whatever made these tablets," she told a skeptical interviewer, "they understood mathematics and astronomy at a level that shouldn't have been possible thousands of years ago." 3 months after the initial discovery, as debate raged on, the IE first satellite appeared in Earth's orbit. It wasn't from any known space program. Ji-eun was eating dinner with Tae-ho and his family when every screen in the house, phones, television, computers, suddenly displayed the same message. "We have received your signal. We are coming to assist." The world held its breath as more ships appeared. Leaders scrambled to prepare first contact protocols. Military forces went on high alert. But when the aliens finally revealed themselves, tall beings with crystalline features who called themselves the Meridians, they weren't interested in Earth's leaders or military. They asked specifically for the humans who solved the first piece of the Eon puzzle. Standing before the alien delegation, Ji-un learned the truth. The tablets were part of an ancient test, scattered across thousands of worlds by a long-vanished civilization known as the Precursors. For 10,000 years, hundreds of advanced species had tried to solve the puzzle without success. And we just spilled coffee on it? Ji-un asked, not sure whether to laugh or cry. The Meridian representative's crystalline face shifted in what might have been amusement. You humans have accidentally done what the greatest minds in the galaxy could not. We have come to watch your inevitable failure as you attempt the remaining challenges. As the Meridian spoke, Ji-un caught sight of Tai-ho's little sister Su-min, who had sneaked into the secure meeting room and was staring wide-eyed at the alien visitors. Something about the child's wonder made Ji-un think that perhaps human accidental success wasn't finished yet. The Meridian ship hovered above Seoul like a giant crystal snowflake, casting rainbow prisms across the city below. 3 weeks had passed since first contact, and the world was still adjusting to the reality of alien visitors. Ji-un stood at the window of the hastily established Interstellar Relations Center, watching smaller Meridian vessels ferry between their mothership and Earth. Behind her, government officials and scientists argued about protocols and security measures. They still won't let us aboard their main vessel, Defense Minister Han complained. How can we trust them? They've shared more technology in 3 weeks than we've developed in 50 years, countered Dr. Lee from the Science Ministry. The medical applications alone, which they could disable remotely, Minister Han interrupted. We're becoming dependent on gifts we don't understand. Ji-un turned from the window. They're not here for us, not really. They're only interested in the puzzle. That much had become clear. The Meridians, despite their advanced technology, showed remarkably little interest in Earth or humans beyond the archaeological sites. Their ambassador, a crystalline being who had taken the Earth name Luminous, spent hours each day at the research facility where the tablets were stored. Tae-ho entered the room, tablet in hand. Dr. Park, you should see this. I've been analyzing the Meridian language patterns. Everyone gathered around as he displayed his findings. They speak at least 17 distinct languages among themselves, Tae-ho explained. But there's something off about how they communicate with us. It's too perfect. Like they're simplifying everything. Of course they are, Minister Han said. They think we're primitive. No, Tae-ho continued. It's more than that. I think they're hiding something. Watch how they react whenever the precursors are mentioned. He played video clips showing subtle shifts in the Meridian's crystalline structures whenever certain topics arose. Ji-un frowned. They're uncomfortable talking about the precursors. Why? Later that afternoon, Ji-un found Luminous studying the tablets again. The alien's body refracted light in mesmerizing patterns as it moved. You've devoted your life to this puzzle, Ji-un observed. All of you have. Luminous turned slowly. The precursor archive is the greatest mystery in our galaxy. For 10,000 years, the brightest minds of 372 species have attempted to solve it. And what do you think is inside this archive? The crystalline surface of Luminous's body flickered briefly. Technology beyond imagination. The precursors were godlike in their capabilities. Ji-un nodded thoughtfully. Yet they left a puzzle that could be partly solved by spilled coffee. A fortunate accident, Luminous replied, a hint of dismissiveness in the harmonics of its voice. The remaining challenges will require far greater sophistication. The conversation might have ended there, but the door burst open and Su-min darted in, followed by a flustered security guard. I'm sorry, Dr. Park. She slipped past while I was, checking credentials. It's fine, Ji-un said, watching as Su-min stared wide-eyed at Luminous. You're sparkly, the 9-year-old announced. To everyone's surprise, Luminous bent down to the child's level. And you are very opaque, the alien responded with what might have been humor. Su-min giggled. Can I touch you? Before anyone could stop her, she reached out and placed her small hand against Luminous's crystalline surface. The alien didn't pull away. You feel like warm glass, Sumin declared. Then, pointing to the tablets, are those your toys? Luminous straightened. These are not toys. They are the most significant archaeological artifacts in galactic history. They look like the blocks at my school, Sumin insisted. Can I play with them? Absolutely not, the security guard intervened, gently pulling Sumin back. But Ji-un had noticed something interesting. When Sumin mentioned playing with the tablets, Luminous's body had flickered with the same pattern Taeho had identified in his videos. That evening, Ji-un invited Taeho and his family to her apartment. Over dinner, she questioned Sumin about her encounter. Why did you think the tablets were toys? Ji-un asked casually. Sumin shrugged, more interested in her noodles. They have the same pictures as my puzzle game. The one where you match the patterns. Later, after Sumin had fallen asleep on the couch, Ji-un showed Taeho and his parents the 3D printed replicas of the tablets she'd brought home. The Meridians have been studying these for thousands of years, she explained. They've tried every mathematical approach, every advanced computational method. But what if they're overthinking it? The next day, against significant opposition, Ji-un convinced the research team to allow her to bring child psychologists into the project. The Meridians observed with what seemed like amused tolerance as human children were shown simplified versions of the tablet patterns. This is absurd, one senior researcher complained. We're turning humanity's greatest scientific discovery into a kindergarten class. But the results were undeniable. Children consistently recognized patterns and relationships in the symbols that adults missed. They approached the puzzle not as a complex mathematical problem, but as a game with simple, intuitive rules. Meanwhile, more Meridian ships arrived in Earth orbit. News leaked that representatives from other alien species were aboard, coming to witness humanity's work on the puzzle. The stakes seemed to be rising. One evening, as Ji-un was leaving the facility, she found Luminous waiting by her car. Your approach is unexpected, the alien said. Is that a polite way of saying wrong? Ji-un asked. Not wrong, different. Luminous's crystalline body shifted in the moonlight. In 3 days, a council delegation will arrive. They believe your success with the first tablet was merely luck. And what do you believe? Luminous was silent for a long moment. I believe there is something about your species that we do not understand. Something we may have forgotten. The old alien's voice took on a strange tone. The precursors vanished when my kind were still primitive. We have spent millennia trying to follow their path to greatness. And if their path isn't what you think it is, Ji-un asked softly. Before Luminous could answer, alarms began blaring across the complex. They rushed back inside to find Taeho, excitedly waving them over to a monitor. It's happening again, he shouted. The tablets are activating. On the screen, they could see the original artifacts glowing with the same blue light that had appeared when Ji-un spilled her coffee. But this time, no one had touched them. What did you do? Luminous demanded. Taeho pointed to another screen showing the children's research room. There, Sumin and 3 other children had arranged their 3D printed replicas in a simple pattern. They're playing a game, Ji-un explained, wonder in her voice. Just a children's game. The research facility buzzed with activity as scientists rushed to document what was happening. The original tablets pulsed with blue light that seemed to follow the rhythm of the children's game in the adjacent room. Luminous stood motionless, the crystalline patterns of their body frozen in what Ji-un had come to recognize as shock. This shouldn't be possible, the alien finally said. Ji-un watched through the observation window as Sumin and the other children rearranged their 3D printed tablet replicas, completely unaware of the commotion they were causing. They had created a simple spiral pattern, taking turns to add pieces according to rules they'd made up on the spot. What exactly is happening? Ji-un asked. Luminous's voice was barely audible. The tablets are synchronizing. This is the second phase of the puzzle, a stage no species has ever reached. Taeho burst into the observation room out of breath. The Meridian ships in orbit are going crazy. They're all repositioning to form some kind of pattern above us. It's responding, Luminous whispered. The entire system is responding to children playing a game. The following morning, representatives from 17 countries and 4 alien species crowded into the facility's conference room. The mood was tense. On screens around the room, news reports showed the Meridian fleet arranged in a massive geometric formation visible from the ground. This was not authorized, the United Nations Secretary General said firmly. We demand an explanation. The alien delegation, led by Luminous and 3 other Meridians, seemed unusually subdued. Finally, a Meridian that introduced itself as Radiant addressed the room. For 10,000 years, the greatest minds in the galaxy have studied the Eon puzzle, Radiant explained. The most advanced computational systems, the most brilliant mathematicians, all have failed to activate the second phase. And now? The alien's crystalline body flickered with what might have been frustration. Now human children have done it by playing. That doesn't explain why your fleet has taken up a new formation over our planet, the defense minister countered. The ships are responding automatically to the puzzle's activation, Luminous interjected. They are forming a receiver array. A receiver for what? Jiun asked. The answer came sooner than expected. That afternoon, as the children continued their games with the replica tablets under careful observation, the original artifacts began to project holographic symbols into the air above them. It's a map, one of the astronomers declared after studying the projection. Coordinates to somewhere. Ji-yoon noticed something odd about the map. These patterns look familiar, she said, pulling up images on her tablet. They're like ancient game boards found in archaeological sites around the world. Mancala, Go, even hopscotch patterns. Games? Luminous asked, the concept seemingly foreign. Yes, games, play. Ji-yoon looked at the puzzled alien faces. Don't your species play games? We have competitive simulations for training purposes, Radiant replied. But they serve specific developmental functions. That's not the same thing, Ji-yoon said slowly, an idea forming. When was the last time any of you played just for the joy of it? Not to win or learn, but simply to play? The aliens exchanged glances but offered no answer. Ji-yoon called for Dr. Yoon, one of the child psychologists on the team. Tell them what you've observed about how the children interact with the puzzle. Dr. Yoon nodded eagerly. It's fascinating. The children aren't approaching this as a problem to solve. They're not trying to find the right answer. They're exploring possibilities, making mistakes, laughing, starting over. They're playing. As the debate continued, Sumin slipped away from her group and approached the original tablets now protected behind a transparent barrier. She pressed her small hands against the barrier, studying the glowing artifacts. They want to play too, she announced to the room. The adults paused their discussion, turning to look at the child. What do you mean, Sumin? Ji-yoon asked gently. The blocks. They're bored. They've been waiting for someone to play with them. She pointed to specific patterns on the tablets. See? This one's sad. This one's excited. They have feelings. The room fell silent. Then Luminous approached the barrier, standing beside Sumin. Child, the alien said carefully. How do you know they have feelings? Sumin looked up at the towering crystalline figure. Because they change colors when we play different games, like how you change colors when you're happy or confused. Luminous turned to Ji-yoon, the alien structure shifting rapidly. The child can read emotional states in our crystalline patterns. Even we struggle to interpret each other's subtle shifts. Children are often more perceptive than adults, Dr. Yoon explained. They haven't learned to ignore intuition in favor of pure logic. That evening, after most of the officials had left, Ji-yoon gathered a small team including Tai-ho, Dr. Yoon, and several children, including Sumin. With Luminous's reluctant permission, they removed the barrier around the original tablets. We've been studying these as artifacts, Ji-yoon explained. But what if they're meant to be used, to be played with? Under careful supervision, the children were allowed to arrange the actual tablets, not just the replicas. At first, nothing happened. Then Sumin suggested they all play together, humans and aliens. "You too," she said, tugging at Luminous's crystalline appendage. "You have to play or it won't work." Hesitantly, the alien joined the circle. The other Meridians watched in what seemed like embarrassment as their representatives sat on the floor with human children. The game was simple. Each participant added a tablet to the pattern, following the lead of the previous player. When Luminous placed the final tablet, completing the circle, all the artifacts flared with blinding blue light. The holographic map reappeared, but now it was more detailed, showing a clear path from Earth to a location in a distant dwarf galaxy. "The precursor archive," Luminous breathed. "The path is open." Later that night, as the facility buzzed with excitement, Ji-un found Luminous standing alone, staring at the tablets. "You've solved in weeks what we couldn't solve in millennia," the alien said. "Why?" Ji-un considered the question carefully. "Maybe because we weren't trying to solve anything. The children were just playing." "Playing," Luminous repeated as if testing the word. "We Meridians evolved from crystalline entities that communicated through light and vibration. Our history is one of careful, deliberate progress. We catalog, we analyze, we perfect." The alien's body shimmered. "But somewhere along our evolutionary path did we lose something your species still possesses?" Before Ji-un could respond, Taeho burst into the room. "The council delegation has arrived," he announced, "and they're demanding to speak with the humans who solved the puzzle." "What do they want?" Ji-un asked. Taeho's expression was a mix of excitement and disbelief. "They want us to lead an expedition to the precursor archive, and they want to take the children." "Absolutely not," Ji-un said immediately. "The children aren't going anywhere." But as she looked back at the tablets, still glowing softly in their new arrangement, she couldn't help but wonder what other secrets they might reveal, and whether humanity's greatest contribution to this cosmic mystery might not be their science or their technology, but their ability to play. The massive Meridian vessel, Celestial Harmony, gleamed like a diamond against the blackness of space. Ji-un pressed her hand against the viewport, watching Earth shrink to a blue marble, then a tiny dot, and finally disappear entirely as the ship accelerated to speeds she couldn't comprehend. "Feeling homesick already?" Taeho asked, joining her at the window. "Just wondering if we've made a terrible mistake," she replied quietly. 3 months had passed since the tablets revealed the location of the precursor archive. 3 months of heated debates, emergency international meetings, and countless sleepless nights. In the end, the decision to send a human expedition alongside the Meridians had been made at the highest levels of government. What had taken longer to resolve was the question of the children. "They must come," Luminous had insisted. "The puzzle responds to them in ways we cannot replicate." Parents around the world had refused, naturally, but Sumin's parents, after weeks of consideration, had agreed to let her join, provided her brother and Ji-un accompanied her as guardians. 4 other children, each selected for their unique approaches to the puzzle, were also aboard with similar arrangements. "It's not too late to turn back," Taeho said, though they both knew it was. The ship's corridors hummed with activity as they made their way to the central chamber. Aliens from across the galaxy, not just Meridians but representatives from a dozen species, moved purposefully through the vessel. Some nodded respectfully to the humans, others seemed to deliberately avoid eye contact. The central chamber was a vast dome filled with stars, a 3-dimensional map of their journey. Sumin and the other children were already there, floating in special gravity chairs that allowed them to move through the star map. "Ji-un!" Sumin called, spinning her chair around. "Look what I can do!" She pressed a control and her chair zoomed across the chamber, narrowly avoiding a collision with a tall, multi-limbed alien. "Careful," Ji-un cautioned, though she couldn't help smiling at the child's delight. A soft chime announced the arrival of the council representatives. 3 beings entered, a Meridian even larger than Luminous, a floating cloud of what looked like golden dust contained within a transparent field, and a squat creature with metallic skin that clicked and whirred as it moved. "The human delegation," the large Meridian announced, "led by Dr. Park Ji-un, discoverer of the first key. The metallic being made a series of rapid clicks that the translation device on Ji-Eun's wrist rendered as such fragile creatures to have accomplished so much. Let us hope they prove useful at the next waypoint. Ji-Eun straightened her shoulders. We're happy to assist, but I'd like to remind the Council that we're equal partners in this expedition, not tools to be used. The golden cloud shimmered, its voice emerging as a melodic hum. Of course, Dr. Park. Forgive Mechanist's bluntness. His species values efficiency above diplomacy. I am Harmonious Thought, and this is Elder Crystal. We are grateful for humanity's unique perspective. The unique perspective was tested the very next day when they reached what the aliens called the first waypoint, a small artificial satellite orbiting a gas giant. The surface of the satellite was covered in markings similar to those on the tablets. We discovered this waypoint 8,000 years ago, Elder Crystal explained as their shuttle docked. None have been able to activate it. The boarding party included Ji-Eun, Taeho, Sumin, 2 other children, and representatives from each alien species. As they entered the ancient structure, lights flickered to life along the walls, responding to their presence. In the central chamber, they found a pedestal holding what appeared to be a small pyramid covered in familiar symbols. The aliens immediately began scanning it with various devices, muttering among themselves. Sumin, however, walked straight up to the pyramid. "It's a puzzle box," she said simply. "Do not touch it." Mechanist clicked sharply. "This artifact has survived for millions of years. It must be studied properly." Ji-Eun placed a protective hand on Sumin's shoulder. "What do you mean, a puzzle box?" "Like the one grandmother gave me last birthday," Sumin explained. "You have to slide the pieces in the right order to open it." The aliens exchanged doubtful glances, but after hours of scanning revealed nothing new. Elder Crystal reluctantly agreed to let Sumin demonstrate her theory. Under close observation, she approached the pyramid again. "The pattern is the same as our game," she said, pointing to specific symbols. "See? It tells a story. The sun rises, the rain falls, plants grow, animals eat plants, bigger animals eat smaller ones, and then everything returns to the earth when they die." Before anyone could stop her, she pressed the symbols in sequence. The pyramid began to glow, then slowly split open, revealing a small crystalline sphere inside. Mechanist made a sound like gears grinding. "Impossible! We tested millions of sequences." "But did you tell a story with them?" Ji-Eun asked quietly. The journey continued, each waypoint presenting a new challenge. At the second, they found a chamber filled with what looked like musical instruments. The aliens had tried to analyze the acoustic properties for centuries, treating it as a complex mathematical problem. 10-year-old Hyun Ki, whose parents were both musicians, immediately recognized it as something simpler. "They're making music together," he explained, showing how the instruments were meant to be played in harmony, not studied in isolation. When the combined tones reached a specific resonance, another pathway opened. At the third waypoint, 9-year-old Dayoon solved a visual puzzle that had confounded alien logicians for millennia by recognizing it as a variation of a shadow puppet game her grandmother had taught her. As they progressed deeper into uncharted space, Ji-Eun noticed a change in the aliens' attitude. The initial condescension had given way to grudging respect, and now to something that almost looked like wonder. "Your children see patterns we miss," Harmonious Thought confessed one evening as they shared a meal in the ship's dining area. "They approach problems with joy, as if discovery itself is a reward, isn't it?" Taeho asked. "Why else explore the universe?" Mechanist's metallic body clicked softly. "For advancement, for security, for resource acquisition and species dominance." "That sounds exhausting," Ji-Eun replied. "Sometimes the best discoveries happen when you're not trying so hard to find them." 4 months into their journey, they approached the final waypoint before the archive itself. The ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel near a binary star system with no planets, only a massive ring structure spanning the distance between the 2 stars. "The gateway," Elder Crystal announced, No expedition has ever passed beyond this point. The final test awaits. As they prepared the shuttle, Ji-un found Sumin sitting quietly in her quarters, looking at pictures of home on her tablet. "Are you okay?" Ji-un asked gently. Sumin nodded. "I miss Mom and Dad and my dog, but I'm glad I came." She looked up, her eyes serious. "Ji-un, I think I know why the aliens couldn't solve the puzzles." "Why's that?" "Because they forgot how to play." Sumin's voice was solemn. "They're so busy trying to be right that they forgot how to have fun. That's sad, isn't it?" Ji-un hugged the child close. "Yes, it is. But maybe that's why we're here. To remind them." As their shuttle approached the massive gateway structure, spanning hundreds of kilometers between the binary stars, Tai-ho leaned close to Ji-un. "Whatever we find at the archive," he whispered, "I think humanity has already made its greatest contribution to galactic society." "What's that?" He smiled, watching Sumin press her face eagerly against the viewport. "We've taught the oldest civilizations in the galaxy how to play again." The gateway parted like liquid silver as their shuttle approached, opening into a tunnel of swirling light that stretched seemingly forever. Ji-un gripped her seat as the shuttle was pulled forward by forces she couldn't understand, accelerating to impossible speeds. "Are we still alive?" Tai-ho gasped when the violent shaking finally stopped. Outside the viewport, a massive structure hung suspended against the backdrop of an unfamiliar galaxy. It looked like a giant tree made of light, with branches stretching in all directions and roots disappearing into a swirling nebula below. "The precursor archive." Elder Crystal's voice was barely a whisper. "After 10,000 years." Their shuttle docked at what appeared to be an entrance, a massive doorway inscribed with now familiar symbols. The boarding party assembled in silence, even the usually chatty children quiet with anticipation. "What do we do now?" Ji-un asked as they stood before the sealed entrance. Luminous stepped forward. "For millennia, we believed this moment would reveal the precursor's greatest technological achievements. Weapons that could reshape reality. Energy sources that would never deplete. Immortality itself." The alien's crystalline body shimmered. "We have prepared extensive protocols for securing and distributing such knowledge." Sumin tugged at Ji-un's sleeve. "I don't think it's about weapons," she whispered. Ji-un squeezed the child's hand. "What do you think it's about, Sumin?" "The puzzles were all games and stories," Sumin replied. "Maybe they just wanted someone to play with them?" Before anyone could respond, the massive door began to glow with the same blue light they had seen in the tablets. Patterns shifted across its surface, forming what looked like a simple game. "Board. It's asking us to play," said Daun, stepping forward. The children approached the door without hesitation. Following some instinct they couldn't explain, they placed their hands on specific symbols. The adult humans and aliens watched in amazement as the children worked together, moving patterns around like pieces in a game. When the final piece clicked into place, the door dissolved into particles of light, revealing a vast chamber beyond. They entered cautiously. The chamber's walls were transparent, offering a breathtaking view of the galaxy outside. But it was what filled the interior that left them speechless. Art, music, stories, games. Holographic displays activated as they walked, showing scenes from what must have been precursor civilization. Beings of pure light engaged in dance, creating art, playing with their young. Other displays showed astronomical data, biological systems, physical laws, but presented not as dry scientific records, but as beautiful visual symphonies. "This isn't a weapons repository," Ji-un breathed. "It's a cultural archive." They spent hours exploring the first chamber, then discovered doorways leading to countless others. Each room contained new wonders: interactive art that responded to emotions, music that adapted to the listener's heartbeat, games that could be played across dimensions. In one room, they found a pool of what looked like liquid starlight. When Sumin curiously dipped her finger in, ripples spread outward and a voice filled the chamber, not heard with ears but felt in their minds. "Welcome, young ones, we have waited so long." Everyone froze. Mechanist's metallic body clicked rapidly in alarm. "Who are you?" Ji-un asked. "I am Memory," the voice replied. "The last echo of those you call precursors. We left this archive when we understood our time was ending." "What happened to your civilization?" Elder Crystal asked, stepping forward. The liquid starlight shifted, forming images of beings made of pure energy. "We evolved beyond physical form, beyond the limits of this universe, but in our ascension we feared something precious would be lost." "Your technology," Mechanist clicked eagerly. "No," Memory rippled. "Our joy, our play, our art. The things that made existence meaningful beyond mere survival." The pool showed new images, advanced civilizations becoming increasingly isolated, focused entirely on efficiency and advancement, losing their capacity for play and wonder. "We saw this pattern repeating across galaxies," Memory continued. "Species reaching technological perfection but losing their cultural heart. We created the puzzle to ensure our legacy would only be found by those who still remembered how to play, to imagine, to see patterns through the eyes of a child." Luminous's crystalline body had gone completely still. "We have spent thousands of years searching for technological salvation, believing the precursors would show us the path to ultimate power." "The greatest power," Memory responded gently, "is not in weapons or energy sources, but in connection, in joy, in wonder, in play." As they continued exploring the archive over the next days, they discovered it contained scientific knowledge as well, but always presented through the lens of art and play, never separated from their cultural context. They understood that technological advancement without cultural wisdom leads to emptiness, Ji-un observed as they gathered in what they'd come to call the memory chamber on their final day. Taeho nodded. 10,000 years of galactic civilization, and it took human children to remember what was important. When they finally prepared to return home, Memory had one final message. The archive is not meant to be hoarded or controlled. It is meant to be shared, to remind all beings of the joy that makes advancement worthwhile. Elder Crystal, who had been unusually quiet during their explorations, finally spoke. "For millennia, the Council has prepared to secure the ultimate weapons we expected to find here. We have negotiated treaties determining which species would control which technologies." The massive Meridian's crystalline structure shifted in what might have been embarrassment. "We never imagined we would find this." "What will you do now?" Ji-un asked. "We must reconsider everything," Harmonious Thought replied, golden particles swirling thoughtfully. "Our civilizations have focused so long on advancement that we've forgotten why we wanted to advance in the first place." Even Mechanists seemed affected. "Efficiency without purpose is inefficient," the metallic being clicked slowly. 6 months later, the celestial harmony returned to Earth orbit. The world had changed in their absence. News of what they'd found had traveled faster than their ship, carried by quantum communications. Humanity was preparing to take its place in a transformed galactic community. "They're calling it the Great Remembering," Taeho told Ji-un as they prepared for landing. "Across the galaxy, species are rediscovering art, play, and cultural exchange." Ji-un watched Su-min sleeping peacefully in her pod, clutching a small crystal, a gift from Luminous. And to think it all started with spilled coffee and children, playing games. As their shuttle descended toward Earth, Ji-un thought about the precursor's final message, recorded in the archive for whoever might find it. To solve the greatest puzzles of existence, never forget to play. In the space between logic and wonder, between analysis and joy, that is where the future waits to be discovered. The shuttle touched down in Seoul, where crowds had gathered to welcome them home. Among them were Su-min's parents, tears streaming down their faces as they waited to embrace their daughter, the child who had reminded the oldest civilizations in the galaxy how to play. "Do you think we'll ever fully understand what we found?" Taeho asked as they prepared to disembark. Ji-un smiled, watching Su-min wake up and run excitedly to the viewport. "I hope not. some things are better when they remain a little bit mysterious. Behind them in the cargo hold sat carefully packaged artifacts from the archive. Not weapons or power sources, but games and art and music. Gifts from a long-vanished civilization that had understood what truly mattered. The legacy of the precursors wasn't their technology. It was the reminder that without play, without joy, without wonder, advancement means nothing at all.